The scout ship Veritas glided through the black, silent stretch of space, its silver hull glinting with the cold light of distant stars. Commander Veclan of the Tselric Empire leaned over the observation deck, his narrow golden eyes focused on the small blue-green planet spinning alone in its modest star system. "Primitive," said Lieutenant Karis, her voice sharp as a blade. "They have no orbital defenses, no war fleets. Their transmissions are chaotic, without order or encryption." Veclan tapped his clawed fingers against the railing, thoughtful. Yet they broadcast across 1,000 channels, saturating their space with noise, not typical of a pre-warp species. Karis shrugged, unimpressed. "Noise is not power." The commander said nothing. He zoomed the visual feed closer. The planet teemed with life, lights twinkling like a second set of stars across the night sides. He could see vast cities, oceans churning with storms, green continents stretching across hemispheres. Life was abundant here, messy, disorganized, yet stubbornly thriving. A new world, ripe for the taking. Behind him, the ship's primary console blinked. Another scan completed. Another report filed. Data poured in. Atmospheric composition, technological markers, power output. By every measure that mattered to the Empire, this Earth was a minor curiosity, nothing more. But something gnawed at the back of Veclan's mind. "Bring up their visuals," he ordered. Screens flashed. Humans, that was what they called themselves, appeared in countless forms. Their skins ranged from pale cream to rich brown, their hair from gold to black. They wore fabrics of infinite variety. They argued passionately in councils, laughed over open fires, wept openly at their ceremonies. They built structures that kissed the sky and carved tunnels deep into the ground. They were reckless. They were inventive. And above all else, they were alive in a way Veclan rarely saw outside the great capital worlds of the Empire. "They will submit quickly," Karis said with the iron certainty of someone who had crushed a dozen other species before lunch. "They always do." Veclan nodded slowly, though a sliver of doubt prickled him. Perhaps. He switched to another feed. One of their news broadcasts. A human in a crisp suit sat at a desk, speaking in a rapid, animated way. Beside him, images flashed. A rocket launch, a hurricane making landfall, a discovery of ancient ruins under shifting desert sands. They are not afraid of chaos, Veclan thought. They run toward it. "Standard procedure?" Karis asked, already preparing the diplomatic drones. "Formal ultimatum, followed by demonstration of strength." "Yes," Veclan said, "but proceed cautiously." Caution. Karis blinked in confusion. "For these primitives." The commander didn't answer. He gazed one last time at the spinning blue world, watching a storm roll across a continent with terrifying beauty. Somehow, Earth felt different. He straightened, smoothing his imperial uniform with a practiced hand. "Prepare the delegation. Notify the fleet. We make contact within the cycle." As Veclan turned toward the command deck, the ship's sensors picked up a stray human transmission, bleeding into the void. A cheerful voice was singing, off-key, to the strum of a simple guitar. "This is Earth calling. We are small, but we are mighty." Veclan paused, listening to the strange, foolish song. A faint, grim smile crossed his face. Small, perhaps, but mighty. That remained to be seen. He walked away, but the song stayed with him, echoing in the corridors long after the ship changed course toward Earth. The first Imperial vessel appeared in Earth's orbit like a second moon, a gleaming black silhouette against the bright curve of the planet. From every major city, people looked up and saw it, a smooth, menacing shape blotting out stars. At first, there was panic. News outlets scrambled for information. Governments convened emergency meetings, and social media exploded with theories. Was it an asteroid? A secret project? Visitors from another world? Within hours, the ship broadcast a signal across every frequency. A simple message, translated into Earth's major languages. Prepare for visitation. Compliance expected. In the Tselric command chamber, Commander Veclin stood tall, watching the data feeds. Their ship's presence had terrified a dozen civilizations into instant surrender before. Earth would be no different. Or so he thought. As the hours passed, Earth's response took an unexpected turn. Rather than declarations of surrender, the Empire received invitations. World leaders publicly welcomed the visitors, calling for dialogue. Scientists issued open letters, eager to meet beings from beyond the stars. Artists sketched portraits of the ship, selling prints online. Teenagers created memes, dubbing the ship Big Space Friend and suggesting it just needed a good cup of coffee. Veclin stared at the reports, his expression tightening. "They are mocking us," Karis said coldly, flipping through intercepted broadcasts. "Their leaders act like children." "No," Veclin said slowly. "They act like they are not afraid." Down on Earth, preparations for the visitation moved forward with strange enthusiasm. Cities erected grand stages. News agencies set up live feeds. Some people held festivals, complete with food trucks and music. The Tselric Empire's official delegation, a team of diplomats clad in ceremonial armor, was dispatched to a landing site carefully chosen by Earth's United Nations, an enormous open plaza in Geneva, Switzerland. When the Imperial craft descended through the atmosphere, trailing brilliant streams of blue light, humanity was ready, not with weapons, but with cameras. Millions watched from around the world. Billions more tuned in through countless streams. As the delegation disembarked, towering and regal, the human hosts stepped forward. They wore tailored suits and broad smiles. Their leader, a woman named President Alina Reyes, extended a hand in greeting, a traditional Earth gesture of peace. Veclin, watching through the ship's monitors, felt a strange twisting sensation in his chest. It was not anger nor fear. It was something worse for a conqueror. Uncertainty. Karis hissed in disgust as the humans welcomed the delegation with applause. "They treat us like performers in a parade." The formal meeting began under the blinding light of thousands of cameras. The Empire delivered its carefully crafted ultimatum: submit peacefully and benefit from Imperial protection, or resist and face consequences. The humans listened politely. Then President Reyes leaned toward the microphone and said, in a clear, confident voice, "Thank you for your offer. We appreciate your visit. But Earth does not submit. Perhaps you would like to discuss terms of friendship instead." The plaza erupted in cheers. From his command deck, Veclin watched it unfold, stunned. Humanity had not trembled. Humanity had not bowed. Instead, they had thrown open their arms and dared the stars to meet them as equals. Somewhere, deep inside him, a quiet alarm began to ring. Commander Veclin paced the command deck of the Veritas, the polished floor reflecting the ship's crimson lights. Reports scrolled past on every console. Analysts whispered to each other in worried tones. Earth's leaders had refused the Empire's demand. And yet no counterattack came. No show of defiance beyond their simple, infuriating offer: friendship. Veclin knew what came next. He ordered a standard demonstration. Not full destruction, just a reminder of power. A precision strike, enough to collapse one of their structures, cripple their spirit. The target was chosen carefully. An abandoned military base in the middle of an uninhabited desert. A harmless show of force, they thought. The weapon deployed with surgical precision. The thin beam of white-hot energy speared from orbit, turning a swath of desert into molten glass in seconds. Silence followed. Earth held its breath. And then, the unexpected happened again. Instead of fear, humans responded with outrage. Environmental groups condemned the attack. Scientists demanded reparations for the damaged ecosystem. Millions rallied online under a banner that read, "Earth stands together." Politicians across the planet denounced the Empire's bullying tactics, refusing to be cowed by fear. Veclin watched in disbelief as humans, rather than fracturing under pressure united. They should be begging for mercy, Karis said, her voice sharp with confusion. Instead, they grow stronger. Veclan said nothing. His mind raced. Every previous encounter the Empire had faced ended in capitulation. Fear was the weapon they wielded best. But Earth met fear with fury, with stubbornness, with an almost reckless belief in their own strength. He needed answers. Send covert teams, Veclan ordered finally. Learn what drives them. In the weeks that followed, disguised observers spread across Earth. What they found confounded even the most seasoned analysts. Humans, it seemed, had built their civilization on challenge. Their history was one long, violent, brilliant struggle. Against nature, against each other, against their own limitations. Where others crumbled, they innovated. Where others submitted, they resisted. They had survived plagues that wiped out millions, wars that scorched continents, disasters that should have broken lesser species. And through it all, they had sung songs, written poems, invented machines, and dreamed of stars. They do not fear destruction, one report read. They see it as an opportunity to rebuild stronger. Veclan leaned over the datapad, rereading the words. He thought of their open hands on the plaza, their laughter even under threat, their stubborn, unshakable pride. Earth was not a primitive world waiting to be conquered. It was a crucible, a forge that burned weakness away and left something harder, sharper, more dangerous. For the first time in his long career, Commander Veclan felt a thread of doubt slip into his heart. Perhaps it was not Earth that should fear the Empire. Perhaps it was the Empire that should fear Earth. He straightened slowly, setting the datapad aside. Prepare a new strategy, he said. His voice was calm, but inside, storm clouds gathered. If we cannot break them, we must understand them. As the Veritas hung silently above Earth, the first seeds of a different future were sown, one that would change the galaxy forever. The Tselric Empire had expected resistance, but not this. They had expected warriors, diplomats, or even insurrectionists. What they did not anticipate was that Earth's greatest weapon was its unpredictability. For every move the Empire made, humanity responded in ways that Tselric had never seen, not through brute force, but through cunning, creativity, and relentless resourcefulness. When the Empire launched its next offensive, a full fleet to orbit Earth's primary cities, a powerful signal to force compliance, Earth responded with something that Tselric had underestimated: unity. The global defense network, once disjointed and scattered, had suddenly merged. Governments, corporations, and even private citizens worked together, pooling resources in ways that defied the Empire's comprehension. Local engineers hacked into satellite systems, while military units coordinated using nothing but open-source software. Ordinary people, from students to retirees, began creating small, highly effective guerrilla units using whatever tools they had at hand. The Empire's first mistake came when they underestimated Earth's technological adaptability. One of their primary ships, a battle cruiser equipped with the latest energy shields, dropped into orbit, only to have its power systems drained by a series of attacks from Earth's ground-based hackers. An entire fleet of drones, previously thought to be under Imperial control, turned against them as humans reprogrammed them on the fly. Veclan watched in silence from his command chair as reports came flooding in. Their comms are encrypted with patterns we've never seen before, one officer reported. We can't intercept their transmissions fast enough. Impossible, Veclan growled. Their technology shouldn't be able to keep up. Karis was equally frustrated. We can crush them with our fleets. The question is, why are they not afraid? They are adapting faster than we can react, Veclan muttered, deep in thought. They've studied our technology, but it's their minds that are the true threat. Back on Earth, every corner of the planet was alive with activity. People who had once been bystanders now became active players in their defense. In Africa, engineers modified old mining equipment into makeshift anti-aircraft weapons. In South America, Farmers turned their agricultural drones into surveillance tools, sharing crucial information across borders. Entire cities, once divided by political and social barriers, now functioned as one interconnected organism, working in ways that the Empire could not even begin to understand. The Tselric fleet tried to strike back, targeting major cities with devastating lasers, but the humans were prepared. As Imperial weapons rained down, unexpected shields flickered into place, protecting the cities with defensive layers powered by Earth's own technology. Even when the Empire launched full-scale bombardments, the humans responded by launching dozens of smaller, more agile counterattacks that disrupted supply lines and crippled the enemy's reinforcements. At the heart of it all, humanity's greatest advantage was revealed: the sheer unpredictability of their minds. Humans didn't just fight in predictable ways. They didn't follow the traditional rules of war. They improvised. They changed tactics on a whim. They learned on the fly and threw away everything they knew when it no longer worked. Veclan stared at the data, overwhelmed by the speed of it all. Their weaponry, their technology. It wasn't that they were better at war. It was that they didn't fight wars the way anyone else did. A cold realization hit him. "You're right," Veclan said quietly. "They don't play by the rules. And they're forcing us to play theirs." Karis clenched her fists in frustration. "They're insane." "No," Veclan said, a rare smile touching his lips. "They're brilliant." But brilliance, he knew, was often dangerous. And humanity had just proven they were dangerous. The Empire's ships hovered over Earth like a storm waiting to break. Vast fleets, brimming with weaponry, cast shadows over entire continents. The Tselric commanders believed their overwhelming firepower would finally bring humanity to its knees, but they underestimated something fundamental: the strength of human spirit. Rather than breaking under the threat of annihilation, humanity had done what they always did best. They turned fear into something entirely new. A single Imperial warship, the Torek, unleashed its massive plasma cannons upon the unyielding surface of the planet. Earth shook beneath the blast. A city-sized crater opened in the desert, sending plumes of dust into the atmosphere. The Tselric fleet waited for the response, for the human surrender. What they got was an unexpected broadcast. A human voice, calm and resolute, filled the void. "We are Earth, and we are not afraid." The transmission came not from a government official or military leader, but from a child. A teenager standing before the crater left by the Torek, holding a flag in one hand, the other raised high as if to dare the heavens themselves. "We stand as one, and we do not bow to fear," the voice continued. "We will not submit. Not today. Not ever." The image of the child, alone, yet not alone, flashed across every screen in the galaxy. It went viral. On Earth, it ignited a wave of defiance. The people gathered, not in fear, but in strength, rallying behind that simple declaration. At the heart of Earth's resistance, a new kind of war was being waged. It wasn't about superior firepower, tactics, or even technology. It was about an idea that no matter how much they were threatened, humanity would never bend the knee. As the Tselric commanders watched, another broadcast followed. This one, even more defiant. Ordinary people, all over the world, filmed their own messages. "We are Earth. We are not afraid." Humans were no longer hiding in bunkers. They were standing in the streets. They were gathering on their rooftops, on their fields, in their schools. They were no longer asking for mercy. They were giving it to the stars. Commander Veclan's hands tightened on the armrests of his chair as he watched the scenes unfold. His first impulse was to strike again, to crush them with overwhelming force. But the faces on the screen, the faces of children, the elderly, the injured, they refused to break. Karis, who had always relished the taste of conquest, stood beside him, her expression hardening with frustration. This is not how it's supposed to happen. They should fear us." "They don't fear," Veclan said quietly. And that is why they're winning. Fear, Veclan realized, had been the Empire's weapon, and it had always been enough. But fear didn't work on Earth. It didn't even seem to touch them. Instead of trembling, humanity laughed in the face of destruction. They sang in the streets. They celebrated their ability to survive, even thrive, in the most dire circumstances. The Empire's fleet continued to hover, ready to strike, but each hour that passed eroded the certainty they had once held. The humans had no warships, no shields like the Selric. Yet they had something far more powerful: unity. They had something that couldn't be defeated by any weapon the Empire had ever conceived of. As the humans continued to rally, more reports came in from planets in the Empire's orbit. Revolts, uprisings, and sabotage, all inspired by the same message from Earth: we stand as one, and we are not afraid. Veclan sat back in his chair, his golden eyes narrowed. He had underestimated them, underestimated Earth, and in doing so, he had unleashed something far more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. He had ignited a spark, and now that spark was a fire. The stars outside the Selric ships glittered with an indifferent calm as Earth burned beneath their gaze. The Empire had expected victory to come swiftly. But now, with every passing moment, Earth's resistance grew stronger, more unified. Humanity, against all odds, had made it clear that they would not bend, and that defiance was spreading faster than Veclan could have imagined. The broadcasts continued, each more defiant than the last. People across the globe shared their stories of survival, strength, and unity. They didn't just resist, they rallied. Engineers, artists, soldiers, and children, all working together in ways that seemed almost instinctive. Every human, it seemed, had a role to play in this unprecedented stand. Veclan stood before the command console, staring at the latest reports. They had thought the fear would cripple Earth's response, but instead, the exact opposite had happened. Fear had become fuel, a rallying cry for every corner of the globe. "They have gone beyond our expectations," Karis muttered, her voice tinged with frustration. "They've made us the villains. They've turned their suffering into a weapon." Veclan's golden eyes narrowed. He had thought the Empire's power would be enough to break them. But every failed attack, every piece of resistance only pushed Earth further into the arms of its people. Humanity wasn't just surviving. They were thriving in the chaos. The question that now burned in Veclan's mind was no longer about how to crush Earth's will. The question was, what was Earth becoming? Reports continued to stream in, and now there were whispers of something even more troubling. Human ingenuity was now being directed not just at surviving, but at weaponizing the very defiance they had embraced. They were manufacturing devices from the wreckage of the Empire's attacks. They were using pieces of destroyed Selric technology to create new weapons that were terrifying in their simplicity. Earth's ability to adapt, to innovate under pressure, was becoming their greatest strength. The first signs of Earth's counteroffensive came in the form of missile strikes, small but deadly accurate. They had salvaged pieces of the Empire's own technology, reverse-engineered them, and were now turning them against the very fleet that had threatened them. "We are losing control," Veclan murmured, his voice almost a whisper as he observed the missile fire streak across the screen. "Their systems," Karis said, barely containing her rage. "Their communications, their weapons, they're too adaptable, too fast. We can't stop them." The fleet had never been more vulnerable. Earth's technology, while far from matching the Empire's, had reached a level where it could now challenge the Empire's dominance. And what truly terrified Veclan was the fact that this was just the beginning. In the heat of battle, something unexpected happened. The Empire's flagship, the Torek, was struck by one of Earth's new weapons, a makeshift missile that breached its shields and crippled the ship's main reactor. The Torek fell, plummeting toward the planet's surface. On Earth, the victory was met with wild celebration, but it was bittersweet. The cost had been high. Cities had been destroyed, millions had suffered, but the message was clear: Earth was not only surviving, it was learning to fight back in ways that no one had expected. The Empire had thought that their superiority would crush Earth's will. Instead, they had forged something stronger. Earth wasn't fighting to survive anymore. They were fighting to win. Veclan felt the weight of the situation settle over him like a stone. His own fleet was beginning to buckle under pressure. The humans had shown them something that Selric had never faced before. An enemy that did not fear defeat. And that, Veclan realized with a shiver, was the most dangerous thing of all. "We need to reconsider our approach," he said, turning to Karis. "They are no longer the underdogs." Karis scowled, her confidence shaken. "What are you suggesting?" Veclan took a deep breath. "That we've reached the point of no return. If we continue down this path, there will be no way to stop them." Commander Veclan stood at the edge of his command deck, staring out at the now battered fleet. The once proud armada was beginning to fracture. Earth's relentless resistance, combined with their unexpected adaptability, had turned the tide. The humans had proven that their greatest weapon was not just their technology, but their will. For the first time since the invasion began, Veclan felt doubt creeping into his thoughts. His forces were stretched thin, their morale slipping. It had been months since Earth's defiance had begun, and there was no sign that they were willing to give up. "We can't win this with firepower alone," Veclan muttered to himself, the reality settling in like an anchor around his chest. This isn't just a war of technology. It's a war of belief. Karis, ever the hardline strategist, stood beside him, her face hard as steel. "We still outmatch them, if we hit them with everything we have." "No," Veclan interrupted, turning sharply. "We've done that. We've overwhelmed them, and it only made them more dangerous. Earth's resolve is growing, not shrinking. We need a different approach, the final one." Karis blinked, confused. "What are you suggesting?" Veclan paced the deck, his mind racing. It was clear now that their initial strategies were doomed. Earth's people had stood firm, and their ingenuity had allowed them to turn what should have been a crushing defeat into a bitter stalemate. But there was one card left to play, a card he knew could potentially shatter the human spirit once and for all. "The humans have one weakness," Veclan said, his voice low. "One thing they cherish more than their technology, their cities, or even their own lives." Karis raised an eyebrow. "What?" "Their home." He turned, looking out into the blackness of space. "We can destroy everything they've built. We can break them by taking away what they value most. Earth." Karis's eyes widened. "You want to destroy their planet?" "It's the only way to end this," Veclan said, his voice cold and determined. "We can strike at their core, their heart, their homeworld." The idea of destroying Earth, of erasing everything the humans had fought for, sent a ripple of tension through the room. Even Karis, who had never hesitated to see entire civilizations fall, seemed momentarily unsure. "Veclan, you know what that would mean. We can't simply crush their cities. We'd be annihilating their species." Veclan's gaze remained fixed. "They've left us no choice. We have no more options. If we do not break them now, they will rise again. And this time, they will turn the galaxy upside down." The silence in the room thickened as the weight of the decision settled over them. Karis knew that he was right. Earth's relentless drive and unpredictable nature had proven them to be more than just a nuisance. They were a force. The idea of erasing Earth from existence seemed impossible, but in the cold, calculating minds of the Selric, the prospect of victory demanded sacrifice. Veclan spoke again, this time with finality. "Prepare the Torek. We're moving to destroy Earth's core. We will strike with everything we have." Karis hesitated but nodded, her expression hardening into one of steely resolve. "Understood, Commander." The fleet began to prepare for the final operation. Ships aligned, weapons charged, and the sense of inevitability filled the command deck. The humans had proved too dangerous to allow to survive. And so, the Empire's final gamble began. The tension was palpable across the cosmos. Earth's defenders, still unaware of the impending destruction, continued to fight and resist, their unity only growing stronger with each battle. The Empire, however, was about to change everything with a single devastating strike. Veclan, for the first time, knew that he had crossed a line from which there would be no return. The Tselric fleet had gathered above Earth like a swarm of dark stars, ready to deliver the final blow. Commander Veclan stood on the bridge of the Torak, his gaze cold and calculating as he watched the planet below. It was time. The humanity that had dared to resist their might would be silenced forever. He had given the order. The Torak and its fleet were prepared to unleash a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. A focused strike at Earth's core, enough to tear the planet apart, obliterate every trace of life. Every city, every piece of human history. The weapon charge, its energy building in a hum of power that shook the very hull of the ship. Around him, the crew of the Torak stood motionless, knowing what was coming. The weight of their mission was heavy on every mind. This was the moment that would bring an end to it all. But as the countdown began, something unexpected happened. The human resistance, scattered, unorganized, and underestimated, had not been idle. Earth's defenders, no longer fighting with traditional weapons, had now turned their focus toward the one thing that Tselric had never considered: the humans themselves. The world's greatest minds, its brightest innovators, its fiercest leaders, had come together in a final desperate bid to turn the tide. They had developed a countermeasure against the Torak's weapon, a weapon designed not to destroy, but to disrupt. As the Empire prepared to fire, a sudden shockwave rippled through the atmosphere. The energy of the Torak's weapon faltered, its beam sputtering as it lashed out, harmlessly scattering into the void of space. On Earth, the world's most powerful systems had just been hijacked. Hackers, engineers, and rogue scientists had united to form a digital wall around the planet, a shield of human ingenuity that even the Tselric couldn't bypass. Veclan's eyes widened as the first reports came in. The weapon was offline. His crew scrambled to identify the cause. Karis, beside him, slammed her fist into the console. "They've hacked us," she spat. "They turned our own weapon against us." The Torak shook violently as a ripple of energy spread outward, its shield generators overloaded by the energy of the failed weapon. Panic spread through the ranks as the Tselric fleet found itself disoriented, the sudden loss of control threatening to tear them apart. On Earth, it was chaos turned to triumph. Cities that had been ravaged, nations that had once been divided, now stood together in defiance, watching as the Empire's grip faltered. Humanity's greatest strength had been revealed. Their ability to adapt, to innovate, to fight not just with weapons, but with their minds. For a brief, fragile moment, Veclan realized that Earth had won. Not through brute force, not through superior technology, but through a power that no empire, no matter how mighty, could ever have predicted: the strength of the human spirit. "Commander," one of the officers said hesitantly, "we've lost power to all systems. The fleet is disintegrating." The news came as a crushing blow. The Empire's final gamble had failed. Veclan stared out at Earth below, his gaze drawn to the small blue planet that had proven so much more than the Empire had ever imagined. The very thing they had sought to destroy had become their undoing. Karis, silent beside him, finally spoke. "They're not like the others. They will rebuild. They'll come for us." Veclan nodded, his mind racing. "Yes," he said softly. "And next time, we'll have no choice but to fear them." As the Tselric fleet began to retreat, humanity stood victorious. Earth had been pushed to the brink, but it had never wavered, and now, the galaxy would never be the same. The Tselric Empire had set its sights on Earth, but in the end, it was humanity that changed everything.